Welcome to the comeback season, where we have real conversations about fueling your body, rebuilding strength, and stepping back into the life you were meant to live. Whether you've been caring for kids, aging parents, or just lost sight of your own needs, we see you. And this is your season to rise. Hello, my name is Nichole McLeod with Healthy Mind, Healthy Body. I'm a mindset and fitness coach and the author of I Started on a Tuesday. I know what it feels like to lose yourself in the chaos and still hold on to the hope that something better is coming.
And I'm Christi Kelsey from Christi Counts Macros, nutrition and mindset coach and food freedom advocate. I've worked with lots of women who felt stuck, restricted, and unsure where to even begin. Together, we're bringing you honest conversations, healing truths, and real strategies to help you rise again, physically, mentally, and emotionally, whether you've hit rock bottom or you're just tired of putting yourself last. This space is for you because this is your comeback season and it starts right now.
Welcome back to the comeback season. Over the next 3 episodes, hosted by just Christy and me, we're diving deep into the real reason so many of us feel stuck. We believe that the antidote to feeling stuck is alignment, and alignment with your purpose. But before you can live out your purpose, you need to understand your self-worth and the true meaning of self-love. So today, we're starting at the beginning, finding your purpose. And while it might sound cliche or even a little silly, the truth is, most of us have never actually taken the time to define what our purpose even means to us. Yet, it could be the very thing standing between you and the life you were meant to live. Your purpose isn't some grand title or this perfectly crafted life plan. It's the thing that sets your soul on fire. It's what you do even if no one's clapping for you and cheering you on, or even if nobody noticed. For me, I spent years chasing clarity, thinking purpose was something I could find. But purpose isn't found, it's felt, it's experienced, it's built. It's built through small decisions, through moments of joy, through your setbacks, through showing up, even when it's hard. That's what today's episode is all about, my friends, helping you step into the purpose that's already been inside of you all along.
That's right, Nicole. A few years ago, when my kids were growing up and I could see kind of this light at the end of the tunnel, I knew they'd be leaving home. I kind of asked myself, what's next for me? And I still felt like I had something to give, but I didn't know what that looked like. For a minute, I thought maybe I'd get a part-time job at my favorite clothing store, more free clothes. Well, not free clothes, but discounted clothes, you know?
Right?
But as I sat with that, it didn't really resonate with who I am as a person. It felt like I'd be trading my time for something that didn't align with who I was becoming. I wanted freedom, I wanted flexibility, but more than that, I wanted purpose. My whole life, people have opened up to me. Even as a kid, they'd share hard things with me, the real things. And I've always been a safe place for people to come when they needed someone to talk to. And that was a gift that I didn't always see as a calling, but I do now. And I believe we all have something like that, something we've carried all along. And when we finally stop and notice it, that's often where our purpose begins. It might not look flashy, it might not come with a title, but it feels aligned with who we are. It feels like peace. And that's what we're diving into today. So let's start with the spark because sometimes the clearest way to your purpose is to follow what brings you joy.
You know, this is a topic that if you would have asked me about 5 years ago, I would have laughed at you. Find your purpose. That sounds so silly, like I just said in our intro. But people realize how beautifully unique each and every soul is. A light that nobody else has ever or will ever bring into this world. And the thing that you are meant to do doesn't necessarily mean you'll ever do it. Because if you aren't aligned every day with who you're meant to be, you're not going to be working towards that. And I want to show people that your purpose, their purpose is as unique as like a fingerprint. It's that it's so unique and so special that if somebody else were to even try to change the world or do that thing, that no, it wouldn't come out the same. And we have this idea in our head that this purpose has to be huge and flashy and, it's got to impact tens of thousands of people. But your purpose could just be impacting one soul at a time. It could be, there's nothing wrong with having the purpose of being a homes, a stay-at-home mom that is raising a big family, that those people are going to be changing this world. Or yes, and sometimes it can be in a career. And that's, I guess, what I wanted to start with today. That's how I found my purpose. When I found fitness and I realized that it brings me so much joy that I could do it all day long and I could talk about it all, and I still could talk about it all day long. And if I have friends and family listening right now, they're like, yes, yes, she could. And that's when you realize that you are aligned with your purpose. Is, does the thing light you up? And it's okay if your children and you're at home and your children are what light you up. It's okay if you wanted to choose a job that maybe doesn't pay as much, but the career itself lights you up. And that really is the starting point of understanding and taking the time to understand what lights you up and what brings you joy. Because to me, finding your purpose is twofold. It's, yes, what brings you joy, what lights you up, like I just said, but what is going to impact others' lives the most. It comes hand in hand, because that's where the true transformation for yourself and what you're going to be able to help others is all about. What are your thoughts on that, my friend?
Yeah, I think when you find that spark or that joy in the thing that you're doing, my husband, I've heard my husband say this a lot, talking to people who are trying to choose their career or whatnot, but he'd say something like, pick the thing that brings you joy, the thing that you would do without the external reward, like a paycheck or recognition or something like that. You do it because you really enjoy it, and it brings you that satisfaction, that joy.
Mhm.
I started lifting weights a few years ago, and I didn't expect to love that,
Atta girl.
but I do, and I thought this matters. This changes me. This moves the needle. And we spend so much time doing what we should do, keeping people happy, staying productive. We push joy to the side. But your body knows. Your body knows what joy feels like, and it knows when it's not feeling that joy. And when something lights you up, when you lose track of time, when you feel energy instead of depletion, that's your clue. That's when you know you found the thing that brings you joy. And joy might not always be loud. Sometimes it feels like calm or presence, or just simply that you've come home to yourself, and that's worth listening to. So, what happens when that joy keeps calling you back to something? When it feels more like, um, feels more, like more than just a hobby?
That is a good point, because the reality is we are all created and are designed with something to give and something to do, like I said, for this planet. So what if the very things you do love to do is the thing you were designed to give? There is a link between generosity and regulating our nervous system in the brain. It's incredible to think that your brain is wired when generosity comes into the picture, you'll reduce stress, you lower your cortisol levels, you trigger more dopamine release. Like, think about, when have you ever given a gift to somebody and not just been just as excited to give than to receive? You can feel that. Christmas morning. Why do we love Christmas morning with our little kids, or with people, just Christmas in general? Giving gifts, watching people's faces. When we watch our children unwrap those presents Christmas morning, the dopamine rush that we experience, that's why we love it so much. So that direct wired in link in our brain with those neurotransmitters are actually a thing, and it's biologically made up in our brain. And when we think about that and realize that when we're giving back and we're living out our purpose and we're living out the person that we are meant to be and how we're going to make the biggest impact in this world, our own happiness increases. Anxiety, depression diminishes. Our anterior cingulate cortex actually regulates our emotions and any, I guess, conflict monitoring. And generosity activates and balances this. It helps with that. And that, to me, is incredible, that we can actually give. And in that process, it's wiring our brains to benefit us through the hard times. And this is actually something I talked about in my book. And this was before I took that little neuroscience coaching. And that when I realized that, holy crow, the reason for this is because we were created to be this way. We were created, once we find our purpose and we're able to give generously. Well, you can give generously even before you find your purpose, but when you find your purpose, you have this whole, takes you to a whole new level. You're able to push a lot of those negative emotions that you may feeling in that time frame of your life aside, and able to push through and work on your own emotional regulation and get you through those hard times. And like I was just starting to say, when I was writing my book, I realized that in those moments when I was so sick and I could barely some days keep my head up, that the days that I still gave, the days that I still went out for that coffee with that friend that was hurting, or volunteered, or volunteered at church, served at church, whatever it was, I always felt better on those days. I wasn't feeling as sick. I wasn't feeling as bad. I wasn't feeling as crummy, as depressed. Those pity parties just weren't as big those days. So I think it's really important that we all stop to realize that we have the power within us to not only change us, but while you're in the process of helping others, you're strengthening your own emotional resilience and able to move forward through those hard times as well.
Mhm. Yes, and no one can do it the way you can. I like to think that we all were born with a little tool belt, and we all have our tools that we're really good at using, but my tools look different than your tools. And so when we get together, we can do so much more together than we can on our own. And I just, I love that little analogy, and thinking that, what are my tools? What are my tools, and how can I sharpen those tools? And as you were talking about generosity, a thought came to my mind about my mom. My mom is one of the most generous people I've ever known in my whole entire life. And I'm not just saying that because she's my mother.
Aw.
I've had, 50 years on this earth of watching my mom just do the kindest things for people. One of her tools is that she's a really good gift giver. She can see what somebody else could use. She can see that. She can see something that they're lacking in their life and know the exact thing that could help them. And I've seen her put people through college. I've seen her help people build houses. I've seen her help people with her photography. She was a professional photographer, and she just has this huge, generous heart. Now, my mom, growing up, we were not rich. We had everything we needed, but we weren't rich. And it's not like she had a ton to give away, but she gave away what she could. And her life was so incredibly blessed because of her generosity. So, yeah, that's what I thought. But what if um, your purpose wasn't born out of passion, but pain?
This is a good one because pain really is a portal. And I was listening to something, gosh, just a couple of days ago, Martha Beck. She's an incredible life coach and she's wrote a ton of best-selling books. And she talks about dirty suffering.
Mhm.
And at first I was like, dirty suffering, like that sounds just silly. But what she means by that is when something happens, when an external stimulus happens to us, something catastrophic, suffering is most likely present. But what makes that even worse is when we catastrophize it in our heads. And it becomes so much bigger because we take that suffering and it's on repeat over and over and over in our head. And all of a sudden, the PTSD happens because we haven't truly dealt with the suffering, because we didn't fully work through the suffering, because we're still creating it to be bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
Mm.
So that suffering that we have, that dirty suffering, a lot of the times keeps us stuck. And what it's going to keep us stuck in is distracting us from becoming the person that we're meant to be through that suffering. And that it really hit home for me because I thought, of course, in the last few years here that it's been very difficult for me is the constant narrative in my head, the whys, the how could this have happened to me? And I know I've made it worse for myself. I know that I've wasted so much time trying to understand and comprehend why certain things happened or why did my life play out the way that it played out. It wasn't in the plans, man. So my brain just has to go over and over and over that. And in that process, the dirty suffering starts. And then we're looping and it's keeping us from moving forward through that. Because we have to remember every single thing that happens to us, the good, the bad, the ugly, is shaping us into the person that we're meant to be. And through our suffering is usually when we can start seeing more clearly on our purpose. And
Mhm.
that's because a lot of the times through our suffering is we get to see the person that the true person that we are. Where do we need to put in more work? Where is our strength? Where, how can we make this situation better? Or why are we making the situation worse? So that portal that we go through is very, very important to ensure that we're acknowledging it for what it is. And how we can work through this is to be intentional. When something happens and we know this horrible thing happened, losing a loved one, let's say, go through the moments of pain and grief. Of course, we all need to have we all want to have the right human response to that. And anytime a human loses someone they love, it's hard, it's painful, it hurts. And I'm not saying to not feel those emotions, but what I'm saying is you do have to get to a point in our lives that we feel the emotions of whatever happened to us to a point, and then we accept it, let it go, and move on. And that is, in my opinion, when suffering can hold somebody back, is because they never really accept the thing that happened to them. They try to make sense of it over and over and over in their head. And through that, it grows so big that they can't make any sense of it, even if they could before. They definitely can't now. And those neurotransmitters in our brain are wiring and solidifying. And if you hold a thought for longer than 60 seconds, you are creating more neurotransmitters in your brain, neural pathways in your brain, and you're creating a solidified negative mindset. And then it's when you're thinking about that over and over and over, that's where your brain's going to go back to. So if you really try to practice that self-regulation and accepting things for what they are, going through the emotions that you need to go through, but like I said, then letting it go and
Mhm.
catching yourself every time you want to create that narrative in your head, you stop yourself in your tracks. And doing this recently has definitely helped me out a lot.
Yeah. And sometimes, well, someone several years ago pointed out to me that our human brains, we like to tell ourselves a story about something. It may not be the truth,
Mm.
but then we repeat that story over and over in our heads. Like, for example, somebody might say something to me in passing, and I take that and grab onto it and wonder why that person said that. And then I create this story of why that person said that. And I start to believe that I know what that person was thinking when they said that, but that may or may not be the truth. But I'm telling myself that. And so then that becomes my belief. So I totally get what you're saying. And yeah, I think that the hardest parts of my journey are the ones that actually gave me the most clarity.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't set out to coach other women. I just knew what it felt like to feel uncomfortable in my own body and to want something different. And I knew I found something that worked for me and it brought me joy and I wanted to share that. And it you get this kind of imposter syndrome because you feel like you don't know enough yet or you haven't had enough experience yet. And we think we have to be fully healed before we can help others. But it's often because of our healing, not in spite of it, that we're qualified. Your pain can be that doorway, not just your purpose for you, but for someone else's healing
I
as
want
well.
to add on to that really quick. And you just brought this up, that isn't it funny how we in our heads assume, we all know what assume, the making an ass out of you and me. What is that saying? That you know what happens when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. That is it. But anyway, it's so true. We have these many times irrational feelings and thoughts in our head. So one thing that can happen, that thing creates a cascade of thoughts, and those thoughts create a cascade of emotions. And then we're stuck in this trap. But if that happens to us, it's happening to the next guy too. So there's two scenarios that can happen with that. Whereas you're assuming that that other guy or girl has these terrible thoughts about you or whatever their opinion is about you, or maybe they do and they're not rational either, and they've gone through that narrative in their head over and over and over and over again. So I think it's really important that we step back and we don't let ourselves do that. So I try these days, if I am going over in my head what I thought somebody thinks about me or what they said about me or whatever it may be, I shut that down right away. I don't even give that thought, and I will catch myself. And yes, I have to intentionally do this because the narrative can go on in our head.
Right.
Our brains, this was actually another interesting thing I learned lately. Our brains can only pay attention to a topic externally for about 45 minutes.
Mm.
It's almost endless internally. That means when we're learning something, we're sitting in front of a computer, we're in a lecture, we're trying to learn, we got about 45 minutes going on there. But you want to put some concepts in your head and go over them over and over and over, you got way longer than 45 minutes. So what happens when we're in that negative mindset and it's on autoplay and looping over and over in our head? Again, we're creating those neurotransmitters in our head and those neural pathways in our head that are not serving us. So good
Yeah,
point, my friend.
true. And our thoughts actually create our emotions and our feelings.
They do.
Then those create our actions.
Hmm.
So um, they're not harmless, those thoughts. But if you do have these negative thoughts, the first thing to do is to catch it.
Shut them down.
And then ask yourself, is it true? Is it kind? Is it helpful? And if any of those, the answer is no, then try to find a way to shift out of it. But the first step is to catch the thoughts, because what we don't want to do is to keep, like you said, in that cycle over and over again, thinking those same thoughts, because it doesn't help us. And eventually we will probably self-sabotage. So, yeah.
So true.
Yes. So, Nichole, let's talk about, we talked about how pain can shape our path, but what about identity? I think our identity kind of determines how we walk that path.
It absolutely does. And that is usually when imposter syndrome can get a grip on you and to make it a little harder for you to really dig deep. A lot of the times we're not ashamed of our purpose. I don't want to say that, afraid to find it. And that may seem silly, but if you're digging deep and you're trying to figure out where you're meant to be in this world and what you're meant to do, a lot of the times you have to step back and really think about who you are. Because I got to a point in my life, and I don't know if you're going to agree with this, but especially as a mom and as a wife and in your career, you become a person like that you thought you had to be. You those people pleasing tendencies can come into play at that point, and you're just living day by day, showing up to the world the way you think the world wants you to show up. And when you're trying to find your purpose in that headset or headspace, you're probably not going to find it, because the first step isn't how you're showing up for the rest of the world. The first step is to find out how you show up for you to serve the rest of the world. And if you don't show up authentically for you, you're going to go in circles, you're going to struggle. And that's where the work is here. That's when you really need to start digging deep and almost chasing it.
Mhm.
Because once you figure out who you are authentically and have conversations with yourself in the mirror, I know that also sounds silly. These days, I can high five myself in the mirror. Have those conversations with yourself. Look in your eyes. You know you. And if you don't, that's the work that you need to start with. And when you show up authentically for you and you stop lying to yourself about whatever it may be or who you are in this world or what you want to do, when you start being true to yourself, that is when you're going to be able to start being true to others. And that's when your purpose is going to show up.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I always wanted to be a wife and a mom. I had no ambition for a big career. I knew I wanted to have children. I wanted to marry somebody who was supportive of that. And I found a great guy, and we had 3 kids together. And I kind of saw myself through those roles for a long time. And also, like, my arthritis symptoms came on in my early 20s, and I kind of identified with that as well,
Yeah.
because it shaped so much of how I lived my life. And like I said earlier, when my kids started growing up and leaving home, I realized I didn't want to just wait around for the next season to happen. I wanted something that felt meaningful to me. And 2 years ago, I went to a women's retreat where we shared our stories and we did some deep, deep inner work. And I came home with so much clarity. I felt like I had found my voice, and I was finally clear on what I wanted to do, how I wanted to move forward, and I was able to say out loud, I want to be a coach. And that was a huge turning point for me. And I I stopped trying to earn my worth through doing, and started trusting who I already was. Started tapping into those gifts, those tools that I mentioned earlier that came in my tool belt. Um, now I see myself as a guide. I help women come back to that self-love and inner peace because that's the work I had to do myself. And we really need to tap into that tool belt, finding our purpose, finding our path, and then it just flows from there. And when you get clear on who you are and you stop chasing and you start choosing, that's when purpose begins to take shape.
I want to respond to that. You just said something very, very powerful. We identify with our suffering.
Mhm.
And that is, I feel, the chains that we get wrapped around our legs sometimes. It just keep us stagnant in where we're at and prevent us from moving forward. Is we're not our suffering. And one day when I was lying in bed for months on end, I realized I was doing that. It was my new identity. It was, this is my thing. And that's all I talked about. And that's all you know, I felt that I had this need to constantly tell my husband how sick I was, like why did I do that? He's a champ and he's my rock and he never once complained about me complaining. But complaining is not good for you, not good for you or the person that you're complaining to. So when
Mhm.
you identify with your suffering, that's usually when you're opening up that can of worms for complaints.
Mhm.
And that's where you need to stop yourself. And I personally still struggle with this. As you know, I'm still having challenges, and some days are better than others. And on the days that aren't, I try so hard to stop identifying, stop talking about it. Don't even tell myself I feel this way. Before I got sick, I had this way of just ignoring it. And now that's not always good either. It's probably the reason that got me into the level of fight or flight I'm in. But you need to stop identifying with that suffering because that is really what, in my opinion, can get you.
Yes, and it goes back to telling yourself those stories again. I know I still remember some of the stories I told myself. I would drive around and around and around in a parking lot till a close spot opened up because I kept telling myself, my body hurts, I can't walk that far. And so that contributed to, you know, getting out of shape and not moving my body, which caused more joint pain. So, shifting out of those stories again are really important, and trying not to identify with those painful parts of your life that we all have.
Yeah.
So, if purpose flows from identity, how do we build it when we don't have all the answers?
Purpose is built, not given. It is, I guess I can't say that. It is a God-given gift, in my opinion, but it is something that as we grow and as we become more wise and as we grow as a human being, but like, what am I trying to say here? It's something that we discover over time. And
Mhm.
of course, it has always been within us, but it is something that still can evolve as we evolve within the person we're becoming. And it will
Feel
never.
like it finally makes sense at one
Yes,
point.
yes, there we go. Those are the words that my brain's trying to find right now. Thank you, friend. But I want to debunk the myth that you'll ever feel 100% clear. You will never feel like this is it. I'm 100% certain. Yes, I guess I'm contradicting myself a little bit there because I did say I was 100% with the whole fitness thing. Yes, of course. But I've been a fitness coach for 30 years. And I've started now recently being a keynote speaker. And I went back and to school in my 40s and got into construction management when my health took a turn and I wasn't able to physically teach anymore. So does that mean because I went back to school into construction management that my purpose changed? Well, no, it didn't. because my purpose has always been, in my opinion, just like yourself, to coach people through, to bring light, to show people the amazing gift that they are to this world. And I know that is my purpose. I can walk up to literally anybody at any time and befriend them. I have zero problem with that. I can get in front of a crowd and have no problem seeing every single person in that audience as an individual, beautiful light of God. And I have no, my nerves don't take over. All those things that most people may experience don't happen to me. So what does that tell me? That tells me I'm aligned with what my purpose is in this world. But for some reason, we sit back and we think that it has to be the perfect moment, that it arrives on this day and this time. Yes, we'll have a transitional moment and a transformational moment and that aha moment, but you'll never feel 100%. And when you wait for that and you don't want to move forward because you feel like you're going to fail or it's going to be imperfect, you know, that's when you're going to hold yourself back. Um, there was a moment when I was writing my book that I stopped midway through my book, and I just felt for some reason that the imposter syndrome kicked in. And I just, who am I to write this book? Who am I? I don't have any PhD credentials to create the self-help book. And I thought to myself, no, this is my story. And my goal this entire time with writing that book, and I put it right at the beginning, that my goal was to help one person on this planet. If I could change the life of one person, and when I say change the life, make it easier to navigate through a time like similar that I went through, then all of my pain, all of my suffering, everything I went through was worth it. Now, it was worth it because it created the person I am today, and I don't want to look back at that. But it took me to decide at that moment, because it comes down to a decision. And if you don't make that decision that I'm going to keep moving forward, and you're waiting for that perfect time and that perfect moment, it's never going to come, because you're always going to make mistakes. It's always going to look imperfect. It's always going to feel imperfect, especially if it's new, if it's something that we've always deep down inside wanted to do, but yet we've never done the thing entirely. It can be scary. You can get, your nerves are going to get a hold of you. But if you realize and you make the decision that even when it's scary, even when it doesn't feel right, even when you don't feel ready, just go for it. Just do it. Just make that first step, because you're never going to get there if you don't just make that first step. I was listening to Mel Robbins the other day. I've been listening to a lot of her podcasts lately, and she's incredible. But I love her countdown. When she's about to get out of bed in the morning, and you don't want to, or anything you just don't want to do, count down to 5, and on 1 you go. Don't overthink it. Just 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Get out of bed, do that thing. Don't let your brain talk you out of it. I love that.
Yeah. And honestly, if you are waiting to feel ready, you might be waiting forever.
Literally.
I know when I started coaching, again, telling myself story, you're too old for this, it's too late for you. I didn't have a plan. I had nothing figured out. I just knew that that was what I wanted to do, and I jumped in feet first. I was all in because I knew what had helped me, and I wanted to help others do the same thing. And so I just started on the path, and I just took one step at a time, and I'm still learning and I'm still growing, but I'm on that path. That's my purpose, and that's how you build purpose. It's just one step at a time, and sometimes you have to take a step into the darkness,
Yeah.
and then the light comes and lights your path. So it's not about perfect clarity. It's about being consistent with your actions, and the only
Showing up,
yeah,
showing up for yourself.
yes, the only failure is when you quit. So don't quit. Um, and you don't need a title, you don't need certification, you just need a little courage and willingness to begin where you are. So, with
So true.
that, as you grow in your purpose, not everyone will cheer you on. So, what then?
Here's the facts when it comes to transforming and changing into the person that you were meant to be. You are going to trigger other people. Other people may feel uncomfortable around you as you're changing, because as you're changing and as you're blossoming into the person that you know you want to be, all those people pleasing days, all of the showing up for people the way they want to be shown up for, how you present yourself and have to the world is going to look different.
Mhm.
And there's going to be resistance. And you have to understand that there are going to be some relationships that are going to struggle because of your new change. But how many other lives are going to be impacted when you show up for this world authentically? And even those people that aren't happy with your decision, and mostly for me personally, it's been family. It's been family not agreeing with this new path that I've taken in life, and everybody has their opinions of the person they think that you should be. And I believe that that's part of the reason that people get held back. And it comes down to, even as a child, your parents could be putting these ideas and thoughts in your head of the person they want you to be, and so you grow into this person they've created. And then next thing you know, you're in your 40s and you're this person that you thought you were supposed to be. And then all of a sudden you're like, actually, this isn't who I am. I've lived my life not authentically me, and now I want to make these changes.
Mhm.
And a lot of people will struggle with that. So it's very important that we understand that peace, I guess peace comes when you stop shrinking yourself.
Mhm.
Peace and authenticity show up when you're intentional about who you are and what you want to do in this world. And
Mhm.
that's something that you need to understand in this process of finding out what that change is that you want to make. And I just want to throw out there, any age this can happen. At any age this can happen. I've seen people in their 60s, 70s completely change course in their life because they finally realized that they're not happy. So I just want to throw out there, it is never too late. And the last piece here before I pass it back to you, my friend, is, who do you feel the need to be validated from?
Mhm.
We all need to feel validated. We all need to feel heard. But in my opinion, a true gift is when you can validate your feelings internally between you and God. That who are you trying to please? You know, if it's other people, then you need to step back and realize, okay, maybe I'm not on the right path. That gut instinct that we get so many times that we like to pretend doesn't exist or isn't there. And if I have people listening that don't believe in God, call it what you want, the universe, whatever it may be. But there is a bigger force, a bigger energy out there that is calling the shots. And if you're not aligned with that, your life isn't going to show up the way that you were hoping for, and you're not going to be able to show up for yourself and the rest of the world the way you were supposed to.
Mhm. Yeah. Growth can be so uncomfortable, not just for us, but for those around us. And I honestly think that when we're on a path of growth, people who knew us, knew the old us,
Mhm.
it causes them to reflect on where they are in their lives, and it causes them discomfort because they aren't currently growing.
That's right.
But if you are on a path of growth, and it is causing discomfort in relationships. That gives you time to communicate with that person, and they'll either stay or leave. It doesn't mean that you need to play small to please everybody else around you. Of course, you don't want to go burn a path and, like drop off every relationship you have in your life. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying that your true friends will be happy for you, that you are growing, that you are changing, and that you're influencing them as well. So, um,
That's so true. And you do grow out of people. You
yeah.
absolutely grow out of people. And you don't want to, and I don't want to insult anybody when I say this, but as you grow, as you change, as you transform, as you evolve into this person with this new purpose, there are going to be other people in your life that just don't reflect that. And that's okay. We're not meant to do life with everyone, even family members. I have said this to family. I love you, but we're loving you from a distance because at this point in our life, I don't feel we're meant to do life together because there are some people in your life that don't bring out the best in you. But you have to make sure that you're not talking to your family because of pride. You want to make sure you're humbling yourself and that it is truly a good decision for the both of you, and to potentially step back and evaluate it at a later date. And that's okay. But not everybody is out for your good. And that is a really hard pill to swallow, especially when they're family. But
Yeah.
we all grow at different times. And
Yeah.
I think it's super important also to remember that every single human being that has crossed your path at some point in your life has done that to teach you something. Some
Mhm.
people come into your life to teach you resilience, others to teach you patience, others to give you wisdom, others to teach you what you don't want to be like, others to enlighten you to a new perspective. And that was one thing in this on this journey that I've taken is the day that I chose, because this is a choice, to start allowing myself to look at other opinions I disagree with was the day that the wisdom just started pouring in. Because believe it or not, we don't know it all and we don't all have it all figured out. And when you realize that even though you could be disagreeing with somebody's perspective, let them talk. Let them tell you what they're thinking. Even if you disagree with most 99% of it, they are going to teach you something. And
Mhm.
opening your ears to that and being receptive to what that person is meant to teach you is when the growth really starts to happen. And you can do this. You can look back to all the people in your life that have pissed you off, that that have created challenges that has brought nothing but love into your life. Your mom, for example. I bet you there's thousands of people with the ripple effect that
Mhm.
she has just impacted in such a positive way.
Yeah.
You mentioned she's a gift giver, so she's constantly giving, probably one of those people that would give the shirt off her back. And then
Exactly.
she gives to somebody, and then the ripple effect, they give, and then they give, and it just goes on and on and on.
Mhm.
But it started with her knowing that and being mindful of that. And so recognizing the people that come into our lives is really, really important. And it's also the people that are currently in your life. Because when you're making this decision to change and to transform and to really dig deep and to start living authentically and to start showing up for yourself, you also need to simultaneously assess who is in your life, how they're making you behave, how they're making you feel, because we both know that how you feel creates your thoughts, that creates your emotions, that creates your actions. So when they say the top 5 people you do life with are a reflection of who you are, they're not joking. So
Yeah.
there are people in your life that you necessarily don't always see eye to eye. And there's going to be some people that maybe don't bring out the best in you, and just keep those people at a further distance and don't maybe see them as often, but really assess who in your life who are you doing life with, and who in your life is creating you into that person that you truly want to be.
Yeah, that's so
Just a
good.
thought.
Yeah.
So your purpose isn't something you earn. It's something you embody. It's the alignment between who you are and how you show up. And even if you don't feel ready, you're allowed to begin.
And your story matters more than you realize. The things you thought disqualified you, they're actually the blueprint for someone else's breakthrough. Your pain, your joy, your curiosity, it's all pointing somewhere.
So let this episode be your permission to slip. Your permission to slip. Don't slip. Let this episode be your permission slip, not to have it all figured out, but to take the next step, because your comeback isn't just about you. It's about the lives waiting on the other side of your courage. So let's go, my friends. Thank you for joining us on the comeback season. Please remember, the conversations we share here are for informational and motivational purposes only. We are not licensed medical professionals, and this podcast is not intended to diagnose, treat, or replace guidance from your doctor or your healthcare provider. Always consult your healthcare team before making changes to your nutrition, your fitness, or your mental health routines. Your health and well-being comes first, and we want you to move forward safely with the right support for your journey.